The original Street Fighter game was kind of all over the place. A lot of strict inputs, a bunch of stages you have to do, plenty of stuff. Let's just dig into like where it all began in 1987. I'm just going to talk about gameplay and like just the characters there, because I'm not that like much of a professional like someone like Maximilian dude is. You can only choose Ryu in the original arcade version. Ken was only there if you did 2-player mode, and that's about it really. Ken was like nothing special, other than the fact he was introduced as Ryu's best friend. You have to, in the start of the game, you have to choose between fighting Japan or the USA, and this kind of just follows a weird, like, world pattern that goes on. Ryu has only Hadoken, Shoryuken, and Tatsumaki Senpukyaku. All of them are actually in the same input, they're just very tight in this game, considering how junky you can say the game feels when you're trying to move around. If you choose the American stage, you fight against Joe, who's just a kickboxer, and Mike. Mike was actually believed to be Balrog when Street Fighter 2 came out, and then this was just, you can say, more so like a denied theory when 5 came out. Then, for the Japan stage, you fight against Retsu. Retsu kinda has like a more so common appearance, especially in the modern Street Fighter media. Me personally, he should have been a 4, okay? Fuck the cap rate. The other character was Geki, but it was rumored that this version of Geki is dead, so this is actually Geki the First. Geki the First died after 5, and we got like a successor, so original Geki is no longer. Then we move on to China, where you fight Lee. Now, Lee is Yun and Yang's uncle, who fights Kung Fu, as far as I remember. I don't remember. It probably wasn't Kung Fu. Then you fight Gen. Now, Gen does not have that Ansetsuken Kiryu or Soryu stuff, and if he did, he just wasn't good. Gen was like really easy to kill in this game, considering that he had like a secret illness. Then you move into basically the boss level, where you fight Adon before you fight Sagat. Adon is Sagat's student, and after he sees Sagat lose to Ryu, he just abandons him. And Sagat is the final boss of the game. Now, Sagat actually makes a lot of reoccurring appearances, since he does get recruited by M. Bison Shalu after canonically Street Fighter Alpha 2. Or 3. Yeah, I think it was Alpha 3. Anyway, so some of these characters have very limited movesets, and yeah, just in general, there's like a weird playstyle. There is 2 minigames in the original game. One was breaking the, like, think of it as like Mortal Kombat's Test Your Might, and the other one was just breaking a bunch of bricks. And yeah, like I said, Ken was only accessible for like 2nd-player modes, but there is some cases where like people like just play the arcade mode, just winning as him, stuff like that. Now, Sagat is like really cheap as a boss. Tiger Knee does 1/3, if not half the damage. Tiger Uppercut shaves all your health off. His Tiger Crush, or Tiger Shot, is just like 1/3 of your health shaved. And yeah, so let's get to the simple basics instead of me yapping on like the base, like the characters. The player competes in a series of one-on-one matches against a series of CPUs, or in a single match against another player, aka Ken. I've said it many times. And each match is a series of rounds in which the player must defeat their opponent in less than 30 seconds. The timer in this game is freaking fast, but you know, you can always like adjust it, or yeah, in the 30th anniversary. If a match ends before a fighter is knocked out, then the winner with the highest amount of points left will be declared the winner. The player has to win 2 plays, the simple format of Street Fighter, in order to defeat the opponent and proceed to the next battle. If the 3rd round ends in a tie, the CPU just wins by default, or you just lose. It was just something that this game only had. It wasn't like King of Fighter 95, for instance, where like, if you tied against Omega Rugal, you have to rematch full health. It wasn't like that. but likewise, a second player can interrupt a single player match and challenge the other player. Now, you use a 8-directional joystick, and depends on the cabinet, you have 6 attack buttons, 3 punches, 3 kicks, with different speed and strength, or 2 mechatronic pads for kicks and punches that determine the strength level of the player's attacks. The player uses the joystick to move towards and away from an opponent. You can jump and crouch. To block, you could just hold back, or just like crouch back. Whoa, yeah, just like hold, crouch back, yeah. Just trying to speak English. And you can perform a variety of attacks just from the possible combinations, whether you're standing, jumping, or crouching. 3 techniques performed for Ryu, like I said, Hadoken, Shoryuken, Tatsumaki, Senpu, Kyaku. Unlike the sequels and later games, the specific commands were just for these moves, and unfortunately they weren't in the game's instructions because they practically just want you to flip around and find out. Yeah, so Ryu is like someone who just goes on his journey to prove his strength, and he just wants to become the strongest Street Fighter in the world. So in total, they are 5 countries, and yeah, so like a 10 enemy boss rush. Now, unlike the later games, Street Fighter's credit how the developers go under combat-themed pseudonyms in the credit section, so like nicknames and stuff like that. So in other words, if you try looking for credit to see who actually made the games, it's just hard. Because unlike Street Fighter 2, you've got the credits and you see like people make it. Except that dude Shin, like with that bison PFP, I actually don't know who he is. Anyway, Keiji Inafune, best known for his artwork in Capcom's Mega Man franchise, got his start by literally illustrating the portraits of this game. So, Nishiyama literally drew several inspirations for developing the gameplay of martial arts that he was practicing at the time. Manabu Takamura was also an artist during the development. And look for inspirations. Basically, the original Street Fighter was just taken off from video games like Karate Champ and Yi Kung Fu. In the arcade versions, there were 2 different arcade cabinet versions of the game. The regular version was a tabletop cabinet in Japan and an upright overseas, and featured basically the 6-button configuration we know in Street Fighter 2. There was a deluxe cabinet that featured 2 pressure-sensitive pads. The pressure-sensitive pads determine the strength and the speed of the player's attacks based on how hard they were pressed. It was very expensive, and it was very hard for the arcade owners to maintain the concept of pressurized pads, even encouraging the abuse and injury of players, with people even stomping on them somehow. In the international versions of the game, Ryu and Ken's voices were dubbed, so they call their attacks names in English. So Hadoken was Fireball, Shoryuken was Dragon Punch, and Tatsumaki Senpu Kyaku was Hurricane Kick. All the sequels until Street Fighter 4 kept the Japanese voices intact. Street Fighter 4 onwards, they would contain English voice acting, although characters in Asia still use Japanese names for certain moves and super combos, unlike English dialogue. That's basically, all there is to know. Well, before I end, the characters that successfully make it into other games, from this game specifically, Gen makes his appearance in Street Fighter Alpha 2, 3, Super Street Fighter 4, and Ultra Street Fighter 4. Birdie makes it in all the Alpha games and Street Fighter 5. Eagle is only in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max, so PlayStation Portable and Sega Saturn, I presume, and SNK vs. Capcom 2. Adon has made it to all the Alpha games and Super Street Fighter 4 and Ultra. Sagat has basically made it to every game except the Street Fighter 3 games. But yeah, that's basically all you need to know. If you guys want to know more about this really interesting game, just let me know in the comments. And well, yeah, that's my breakdown for this really weird game.